virus Omicron. Falcon hates puns and thinks that they're all wrong. One's American and one is an Aussie. Talking about StarCraft 2 and the esports scene.
Hello, and happy podcast day.
Happy podcast day to you too. I'm celebrating the podcast day with a chocolate coffee, I think they call it mocha frappuccino.
Oh, that sounds very appropriate for podcast day.
It's also nice and cool and sweet.
Yes. But isn't it getting colder down there?
It is, but I've got the heater cranked, so.
Ah, yes, okay. You need to compensate for the compensation.
Indeed. I'm always reminded of Futurama where Fry and Amy go to Mercury on a car, and they turn up the AC and then they're too cold, and so they turn on the heater, and then the car dies because they run out of power.
Sounds about right for Futurama.
Yep.
I actually watched a video from, I think it was Nerdwriter today, about Futurama.
Mm-hmm.
You know the episode where we figure out what happens with Fry's dog after he gets cryogenically frozen for 2,000 years?
Uh-huh.
And the dog just sits in front of that pizza place forever until it dies, waiting for Fry to come back. It is the saddest thing of all time.
Yes.
Yeah. So apparently in a future, I'm not sure if it's an episode or a special or something, but Bender does some time traveling and basically stops it so Fry never actually gets sent back. So in this sent forward, I guess is the more appropriate word there. And so Nerdwriter was just so offended that they had introduced an alternate timeline where the dog never has that happen to them. He's like, it just says, I don't know, it says a lot about the human experience and a lot about Fry and his own decision making and his guilt, and he finds out that's what happens to the anyway, and it just changes all of this stuff, and he called it a retcon, and he's like, I hate this so much. And I was just like, I hate retcons too. I really hate it when people go back and change things. I don't know if that's exactly what this was, and I'm not sure if it's worth the amount of criticism you're heaping upon this concept here. I've never heard of anybody complain about this before. I think it's widely understood to be kind of a one-off time travel story, right?
Right. It changes nothing, and this person is just overly upset.
I agree. And plus, it was a 12-minute video where that was the one point that he made, and I was like, all right. We're padding a little bit here. You had this one thought, and you're like, this could be a whole video. I disagree.
Well, you got to get it over 10 minutes for the YouTube algorithm to recommend it. Yeah.
I'm very aware. I know why it's as long as it is, but it's just, he's usually very good at it feels like this is an appropriate amount of time to talk about this thing or these multiple ideas, and this one was just kind of Just first time I've been a little disappointed with him. That's all. It was fine.
Fair enough.
Yes. Was. Anyway, I haven't actually watched a lot of Futurama. I don't know what it is.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, if I had to think of how many episodes of the show I've watched, it's probably 20 total.
Whoa.
Over the whole run.
That's like a season.
Yes, but spread out, right? I never sat down and just said, okay, season 2, go. It was over the years. I'll just catch something on Adult Swim, or it was over here, or then it was on Fox, and so to this point, I feel like I understand Futurama really well because I've seen a lot of episodes. I know who all the characters are. I've heard about all of the major plot points just on Reddit or Twitter or whatever over the years. Mm-hmm. So there's no part of me that's like, I should sit down and watch all of Futurama, even though it's really good. It's an excellent show, and I probably would enjoy it. No part of me is like, I need to get all of it. I just feel like I've gotten all of it already. I don't know why.
Well, I mean, that's probably fair. I mean, it's also Matt Groening, I believe.
Yes, it is.
So watching it, you would get a very familiar sense from The Simpsons, which you've definitely seen more of, at least the first 10 seasons.
Correct.
I can imagine watching some of Futurama and being like, this feels very familiar. And not needing to watch all of it, yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I consider it very different from The Simpsons. Nerdwriter, I've seen a couple of his videos about Futurama, and he always makes the point that it was the most overly qualified writing staff for a TV show of all time. Because there's people with multiple PhDs in physics and a master's degree in mathematics sitting over here. Everybody's crazy educated. And that's why there's so much, high-level science and math and philosophy in this show. Is because that's who the people are who are writing this. So it feels different from Simpsons, which has always been smart, but not that kind of smart, Especially the early seasons, it was intelligent, funny, clever, great writing, but it was never like, let's discuss, the concept of loss in a deep and almost scientific way, I don't know. I'm not saying that Futurama isn't dumb, because Futurama has a lot of dumb moments for sure. But it's just
Right.
I've never considered it to be the same thing as The Simpsons.
Right, but as someone who's watched the entirety of at least 5 or 6 seasons of Futurama, I wouldn't say it feels smart either. Right?
Okay.
There are lots of times where it's like, okay, there is something smart going on. Like there's an episode where it's like a mathematical problem of how do you prove that if you do something where, like, it's really weird because it's like the Globetrotters basketball team or something. Like,
Oh yeah, no. The
mathematicians.
Harlem Globetrotters are like brilliant physicists in this universe. Yeah.
Right, and they're dealing with like some really smart math problem, and they like bust out chalkboards and they solve it. It's great, but it's not necessary for that to even be a real formula or problem or a solution, because there are plenty of shows like Rick and Morty where it's like, here's all this interdimensional sci-fi stuff, and it's not real. It doesn't matter. It's complete technobabble, and Futurama could be the same. You don't need a qualified writing staff to do that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, anywho, the point is, I don't know. It's not so much that I didn't want to go back and watch because I feel like I've already seen it. It's just more that, I don't know. More that the show doesn't do enough stuff in it over the run that I want to watch it. I guess it's kind of like Friends, right? You love Friends.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sure.
it's not like a lot changes or a lot of stuff happens over the show's run, right?
No, a lot of stuff happens.
Okay.
Like, lots of things happen.
All right.
Yeah,
Well, maybe this is just my interpretation of what things are being off then.
maybe.
Anywho, the point is, I have a lot of stuff on my list.
Yeah. Okay, I will agree with you that stuff like sitcoms like Friends, it's a lot of stuff happens, but it always feels like the balance resets to 0 at the end of every episode or every other episode, and so you still end up at a point that feels familiar to start the show, and that's kind of how sitcoms work, I feel.
Yes.
Like-
And sure, people get married and sometimes people die, but it's a pretty rare occurrence that anything like super universe changing occurs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, like the biggest thing I could think of is stuff like Community, where it's a couple of the actors leave. But things like Friends or Futurama, that never happens throughout the show, but they always, even though things change, they still feel similar. But the similarities, I guess, don't matter then.
Right.
Or the changes don't matter.
Yeah.
No.
Not as much.
Hmm.
I mean, there's stuff like the Fry and Leela relationship,
Mm-hmm.
which I understand goes from a point A to point B over the course of the entire show, but it's so slow. It takes so much time to get really anywhere that way. So I don't know. It's fine. Things are good. Futurama, decent show.
Yeah.
So speaking of the TV and Rick and Morty,
Mm-hmm.
the second half of the 4th season wrapped up the other day.
Oh, okay.
Really good. Like, really fantastically good episode. They actually brought back a couple things that they'd teased a lot. Like, specifically teased in earlier episodes years ago at this point and never really came back to, and finally they did.
Okay. Like what?
Quick spoiler alert. Actually, do you care about Rick and Morty spoilers? I can't remember.
No.
No. Okay. So bottom line, Rick has a best friend named Bird Person who he's like fought wars with, and is like the closest thing in the world to a friend that he has.
Mm-hmm. But
And then
person
he-
dies.
And then Bird Person, he gets betrayed at his own wedding and murdered and gunned down, and then brought back as Phoenix Person, which is like a cyborg bird person, where it gets really complicated as what this guy is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that happens like in season 2. It's and this is not just 2 years ago because Rick and Morty took a huge break. So this is like 3 years ago. They've never really teased Phoenix Person ever coming back after that moment, and they finally did here.
Okay.
And so that happens. Like there's the thing where Beth and Rick have a conversation about she kind of wants to go out and do her own adventurous stuff, but also she wants to stay in and be with her family. And she's really split on this. And so Rick offers to make a clone of her that can go off and do adventures while she stays home.
Mm-hmm.
But it's never said whether she takes the offer or not. And then in this episode, she did. And so the best part is he doesn't know which one's the clone, and neither of them know which one is the clone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of put forward as like it doesn't. It's put forward as it matters, but I don't understand why it matters, I think. Like, does it really matter that nobody knows which one of them is the cloned version of this person? Because they have all the memories. They have all the experiences up to the point they got cloned. They're basically the same person. They're just one of them's following different impulses than the other one.
Sure. Yep.
It's interesting. Really good. Zippy. The writing was fast. It was fantastic. So I'll highly recommend it. If you have been waiting on season 4 of Rick and Morty and you're like, oh, they split it into 2 parts, and is it even worth going back and watching? The answer is yes.
Okay.
Enjoyed it immensely. Mm-hmm.
Glad to hear it.
Yes. So what have you been into recently?
Not much. Right? Like, I've been watching a lot of, I would call it garbage on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
So just stuff like blooper reels from Community,
yeah.
Total Biscuit Hearthstone gimmicks videos that I watched like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm. Just rewatching some of that.
Rewatching some like CGP Grey videos. Like, as far as like serialized content, so TV or movies and things like that, I've kind of been watching 3 shows. One of them I really like, Kaku Shikoto.
Okay.
Anime about a dude who's a manga artist, but he draws like not like lewd but naughty, like dirty jokes kind of comics, like manga.
Okay.
And he doesn't want his like 7-year-old daughter to find out what he does, and so it's just a sitcom about him trying to hide his job from her. Yeah, which is pretty funny, but at the end of every episode there's like a 2-minute flash forward to when the child is an adult, and there's a running mystery of like her father has disappeared and like his manga studio is like shut down, and one of the people is like working at a bookstore, and one of the books is like the mangaka that disappeared, and he's like he knows something. It's like leading on that he knows that he didn't really disappear.
Oh.
And so, but it's literally like anywhere from like 2 minutes to 30 seconds at the end of each episode. That's how they're stringing along this mystery at the end.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen that method before.
Yeah, and so I mean it's working because I'm interested, and the 98% of the rest of the show is just cute father looks after cute daughter doing cute things in cute ways, and it's all very feel good.
But then there's the mystery.
So it's fun. The other 2 things that I'm watching, I haven't really kept up to. One of them is called, how do you pronounce this? Shashichibato, President, It's Time for Battle, which is an adventure fantasy anime about the corporate world, and everything's corporatized. And so they go into a dungeon, and the puzzles are like, you need to satisfy workers' rights and profits. How do you do this? Or, like, that's the kind of puzzles they get. It's really, really bad. Like, I cannot tell you. Like, I don't rate things on my anime list before I finish watching them, but I got like 6 episodes into this, being like, I'll give it a try, maybe it'll get better. I can kind of get the gimmick if it works. It doesn't work, and after like 7 episodes, I'm like, I want to finish this just to say that I did, so I'm qualified to give it like the 2 out of 10 it deserves.
So that nobody can be like, you only watched the first 2 episodes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're powering through?
I'm struggling.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like there's an entire like arc where they're trying to get this like inheritance from one of the main characters. His father has like disappeared and donated all of his company's quote unquote legacy stuff to a museum, and then so they get the kid to then take over the company, who's just had all their stuff donated, and to get all that stuff back, they have to pay a tax, and the tax is like some outrageously large amount of money. I'm like, why couldn't you just buy new stuff with that money?
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of writing like that. It's like, it doesn't make any sense. And then they get all the stuff back, and it's like, oh, that was a test from the old guy who disappeared. He wanted to prove that you could run a company. Yeah, not exactly a satisfying payoff.
No. I'm going to recommend you stop watching this.
But I need to be qualified to tell people it's bad.
No, I don't think you do. There's enough
I
bad
do.
stuff out there, man. What's its rating currently on my anime list? Is there like an average?
Let me look it up.
Because if it's already 2, you can stop.
It's weird. It's got a different name. It's 5.25
Out of 10?
out of 10.
It's effectively 2. Right? Nobody's going to be like, should I give this a try? Oh, it's 5.5. Yeah, you know what? It's worth my time.
I mean, yeah.
All right.
I could maybe stop.
I'm just going to officially free you from doing this, but if you want to continue, you can. I'm not telling you what to do. Just
Thanks.
giving you the option.
Yeah.
Bruh. So yeah, things are kind of exciting here a little bit with the, the protesting / kind of some rioting / further police misbehavior / it's a little nuts. Before I get there, the SpaceX launch went really well. I'm not sure if you're able to watch that.
I haven't heard of this.
Oh, so SpaceX, Elon Musk's going to Mars company.
Yes, I know what SpaceX is.
You're familiar with SpaceX. Okay, I thought you might be. I was just making sure. It was the first time on Saturday, or your Sunday, I guess, by that time. The first time a privately owned, rocket ship company launched and sent people to the space station.
Cool.
Yeah, so they were able to launch from Florida up to the International Space Station. Everything went really well. It was pretty fantastic. And it's just, I don't know, it's nice. It was the first time there was a manned crew launch from U.S. soil since 2011. Ever since NASA discontinued the space shuttle program. So it was the first time in a while. It was pretty neat. It was just kind of cool to see the next step to officially, the goal is to colonize Mars. So this is the next step along that very long, very complicated, very difficult journey. Well,
there are a lot of important things to nail between now and Mars. Colonizing lunar is more important than is the first, I would say, the major achievement on the way. If we can get it working somewhere relatively close to Earth,
yes,
where help is maybe feasible if something goes wrong to these people up in space.
Moderately feasible. Yes.
And then we can maybe start looking at Mars. Yeah.
No, you're right. The next big step would be doing something on Mars, but the eventual goal, is the moon. But eventually, it's Mars. So, anyway, that was neat. I was like, "Hey kids, you want to watch a rocket launch up to the International Space Station?" And they were like, "No." I was like, "Too bad, we're watching it anyway." Because I'm the dad, and we did, and they liked it. They thought it was really cool. They're like, "It's going 8,000 miles an hour!" Blew their little minds.
Really slow.
Yeah. Well, yes, that's as it was accelerating up. It gets to I think the max was 70,000 miles an hour. Anyway, orbital speed's zippy.
Yep.
Yeah, but they were just like watching that little MPH thing going up, and just the fact too that the booster rocket lands itself as well, so you can reuse it, saving like $1 bajillion each launch. That was neat. That went really well. So it was encouraging.
Yeah,
There was a lot of stuff that could have gone wrong. It was a hard thing to do, and they pulled it off. So
it's the one of like two things that I like about Elon Musk.
is
The fact-
SpaceX.
SpaceX.
All right. What's the other thing?
I like self-driving and electronic vehicles. I like that development.
Cool.
Which he is also like not really a part of. Like he owns and operates, but every time he like tweets something about Tesla, their stock prices drop.
Sure does. I don't know how involved he is day to day in any of his companies. 'Cause
Yeah.
he has a few.
Exactly.
I also
but
like
I
his
like him for
solar
setting-
power battery stuff that he's got going on.
Yeah. I just include everything electronical with Tesla because that's seems to be the driving point for that stuff at the moment is how can I charge my cars easier?
Yeah,
You know?
which progress is being made there too. So
Yep.
hooray the future! In some
Yeah.
ways, also boo the future in other ways apparently
Heard
because
the future.
I just so somehow we go from this COVID thing, which is horrible and affecting everybody on a global scale, to we have another instance of a white cop murdering a black citizen in the U.S. and everything goes nuts further.
I heard about this.
Yeah, so that happens. I mean, it's completely an unjustified death. For a while, there were people who were like, "Well, he didn't know what was happening, and it was a weird, fluky thing that the guy died." But then the autopsy report came out and was like, "No." So this is bad news, and it's a long history of this very specific kind of thing happening over the years in the United States. In specific, I think what made this instance as enraging as it was is that this particular cop has been involved in bad shootings before and kind of investigated, but not really, and maybe transferred around the department a little bit, and then everyone forgets about it and he keeps working. So he's emblematic of a larger issue where there are a lot of cops, and I'm not going to say it's all cops because it's not, but it's a big number of policemen in the U.S. who have been involved in bad acts of some kind in the past. And historically, they haven't really faced any consequences for that, and they're allowed to continue on doing the things that they're doing.
I know you love John Oliver, so I'm gonna bring up there's a John Oliver episode about it where he mentions that police officers who are in these kinds of situations can often at times get a label of gypsy cops because they just move to a different station or interstate or whatever, and at some times, depending on the state, they can actually have their records expunged. Like, so even if there was a record of them, accidentally, maybe intentionally murdering someone, they can get that stricken, like gone, and then their next employer
Doesn't
won't
even know.
see it. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's like the priests who are molesting kids in the Catholic Church worldwide. They'd find out that a priest was molesting kids and say, and send him to a different parish. And just be like, hey, you have a new priest, enjoy him. We're not going to tell you what he did. It's just organizational
Corruption.
Yeah, I was going to say incompetence, but that's not what it is. It's corruption. It is a further word.
Yeah.
Yeah, on the bad scale. So the trick here is, what do you do about it? I mean, I am not someone who's huge into like federal government oversight into anything, because I think it's complicated and it's big, and the bigger something is, the more incompetent it is. But at this point, I don't know what else you do other than have some kind of a federal organization like the FBI be in charge of these things. And in the instance where there is a bad shooting, or the instance where somebody dies in custody and it seems unjustified, then they come in and they investigate it, and then they can press charges and do whatever they need to do with these people, because that is not happening otherwise. And I don't know, you can put down a directive or, hey guys, hey police precincts across the country, start taking this seriously. Okay, thanks. Like, they're not going to do that. They're not going to start changing the way they've been behaving for a all these years
Mm-hmm.
and decades and centuries and however long it's been. And another crazy thing I heard about the Minneapolis situation, which is where this death was, is that they had a like progressive police chief who was really interested in rooting this stuff out, and she actually requested a federal investigation into her department, tried to figure out what was going on, tried to right some wrongs that had been ignored in the past, and it was going pretty well. And then she got involved in a scandal and got kicked out, and then that was it. So
I mean, tinfoil hat me says she, like, that scandal, you know.
yeah, maybe she was set up, right?
Yeah.
Because of what she was doing. Maybe she was framed for something. And I don't know. I haven't looked into enough to tell you whether that's the case or not, but that's what happened in a nutshell.
Again, tinfoil hat. From me.
Yeah.
Like, no
Yeah,
evidence to support that at the moment. It's very well. What kind of a scandal was she involved in? Just
I don't even know.
Okay.
Like, the thing
Let's-
that I read didn't go into it. It was literally
Okay.
just she got involved in a scandal and was removed from her position.
Okay.
Yeah. Rough.
Yeah.
So anyway, bleh. So the point here is that I do support a lot of reforms in that area. People have come up with concepts of making it harder to be a cop because it's kind of easy in the U.S. at this point, but actually having them go through, 2, 3, 4 years of training to get there with a lot of psychological evaluation along the way will help weed out the bad ones before they even get a badge and a gun, I mean, it's an attempt. It's not a guarantee of anything.
Right. Yeah, it's a problem where you can't have people with badges and guns be like, I keep seeing, I think it's a Chris Rock quote or something, where it's like, you can't have police be some bad apples, they need to be all good, right?
Which is friggin' impossible.
It's impossible, but he's not wrong, right?
He's not.
It's an ideal that people need to keep working towards and implement systems to increasingly weed out these things.
Yes. Well, and two, there needs to be an atmosphere where good cops can feel like they can speak up about things they see and not get negatively impacted by that. Because I think that's a big part of it. I think, and I've seen good cops be criticized for this and being, you were complicit with this bad act because you didn't blow the whistle on it. And it's like, okay, maybe. But the other part of it is, I think if you're a cop and you know nothing's going to happen, if you bring this up to your superiors and that you might get punished for it, you're going to be reluctant to say anything about it. So you need to change the culture and the attitude of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, changing the culture and the attitude is a good way to do it, but just having a system for external review, right? So, like the FBI, if you're a cop and you going to your police chief in your department or your station or whatever, how that works, won't do anything, you need a way to raise a flag elsewhere for an external review to come in.
Yes.
Whether that's the FBI or whoever, I don't know. But
well, there's internal affairs, which is kind of an outside organization that comes in. I mean, another problem with internal affairs and other concepts like that is cops circle the wagons in that point, right? They don't want to respond to interview questions. They don't want to show evidence of things that happened. They mysteriously lose footage of body cams, stuff like that. But I mean, that's true no matter who's trying to fix things, right? They're going to face that kind of obstruction.
Yeah. In which case, I feel like if they're going to obstruct, surely you could arrest them for obstruction of justice. Right?
Yes. Yep.
It's like, okay, well, you don't want to play ball, go to prison.
Yeah.
I feel like that's a solution to either way, because I really just feel like it's prisoner's dilemma sort of a thing, where it's like, good cops aren't going to obstruct, bad cops are, so why not just arrest the ones that obstruct, even if you don't get them for the thing you're investigating? Kind of feels like it solves both problems. If they don't want to behave and commit,
Yeah, because if you're obstructing, you're not interested in helping solve the problems that are present, and you're part of the problem. So, yeah, so there's that. It was encouraging to see that the officer who was involved in the death in Minneapolis did get arrested and charged with murder. So, in the past, that hasn't really necessarily been the case. So sadly, that is an improvement. So I don't know. It's complicated. It's all so complicated. A lot of people are blaming this on the fact that President Trump is in office and he's not as supportive of the movements against police brutality as you'd like him to be, right?
Yeah. I would say there is definitely that feeling.
Yeah. And so in an indirect, roundabout kind of a way, I think that emboldens bad cops to continue their bad behavior because there's not really a federal policy against this. Maybe there's not going to be anything that comes back on me for this. And whether that's true or not, again, it just matters what the attitude is, right? What you believe is the reality.
Right. This just reminds me of a guy, like the first person President Trump gave his pardon to, right, was a sheriff or something from somewhere who was fired and arrested for racial profiling, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he went for prison for, and that's what President Trump pardoned him for.
That's a pretty strong message you're sending, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Blech.
So I can definitely see where people are coming from when they make that argument.
Yep.
I don't know if there's enough pardons in the world to make, like, it sends a message, but like there still needs to be a system in place that cops who feel emboldened get punished, right? Because you theoretically, I can't understand looking at a system being like, cops are doing bad things, let's not punish them. No, that's what police are there to do. They're there to punish, like, stop people who do bad things. How is that so hard to work out?
Yeah.
Right? You can't pardon every police officer that does this, right?
No.
That's clearly not a solution. So what good does pardoning one do other than embolden people? I don't know. It's just...
Yeah. Well, and back to my
like a
original
loop.
concept of it needs some kind of oversight.
Mhm.
If the president isn't interested in that happening, it's not going to happen. Like, there's not somebody else. There's not anybody that's going to be like, I'm going to start this program without presidential approval at the federal level. It's just, even if literally you don't need the president to approve what you're doing, you're still not going to do it just because he's the commander in chief.
Right.
So that's why I look at this and I'm like, I understand that we need change, we need reform, we need a lot of stuff to happen. I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon. I think just because this is just the nature of it is people are going to get tired of protesting. People are going to have to go back to their jobs. People are going to have to get on with their lives, and they're going to feel discouraged that nothing actually happened. But I think that's where we're going with this. And I don't know. I mean, I'd like to say if Trump loses the election in November, that things could change in a positive direction for this, but I really don't know.
If I had to make a prediction, I would say everything you just suggested probably happens. People get discouraged, they go back to work, and eventually this all settles down. And then my prediction is another murder happens, or another injustice in some way happens, and protest comes back, but they're larger. Riots come back, and they're worse. And that keeps happening. Because if peaceful protests worked, riots wouldn't happen. Because I feel like when you're directly challenging the authority in the area, I don't think peaceful protests work very well. Like, governmental authority, I don't think listens to that particularly.
Well, so a couple things. The Martin Luther King Jr. protests in the 60s that largely generated and helped create the civil rights movements for America back then.
Mm-hmm.
He was huge into, like, what did he call it? Civil disobedience, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, we're not rioting. All we're doing is going into restaurants that don't let black people come in and sitting down.
Mm-hmm.
We're drinking from drinking fountains that are only for white people. We're doing stuff. We're not breaking anything. We're not destroying anything. We're just doing this. And that was it. That was what led to the civil rights movements and the acts. That got a lot of attention. The cops behaved really badly in that situation too.
Mm-hmm.
And that was that. So I do think that nonviolent organization and protest has worked in the fairly recent past for the United States.
I would argue people being allowed to walk into a whites-only cafe and order a drink, that's good. but I can't point to a specific change that these people want to see like that. Like, if you want to have a peaceful protest or public disobedience or civil disobedience work, you need specifics. And I don't think walking down the street counts as like a specific change. Like, what are you hoping to affect there?
Well, I mean, again,
Like,
what you're hoping to affect is some reforms in how bad acts of cops are prosecuted and handled, right?
Right, but that's not the same thing, right?
It's not as concrete of a clear concept, right?
Right, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
And also, everything I've seen, and again, that's the other problem with this, is that everybody's on Twitter, and everybody's on Reddit, and everybody's on Facebook trying to portray their version of the events.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that anybody who's getting 8 million retweets is really interested in portraying the truth 100%. Right? Most of them are interested in getting additional retweets. But for what it seems like, there's a lot of peaceful protesters out there, and there are some people who are just there as people are there recognizing it as an opportunity to riot. They're the people that just want to break windows and steal stuff and burn things, and you can't do that normally. You need another type of an activity to kind of blend into, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I've seen, is that it's generally people who are interested in writing, whether it's to try to cast negative light on the protesters, or they're just anarchists who just like burning stuff and this is their thing.
Sure.
So that's happening, and then that gets picked up by the Fox Newses of the world as, oh, they're burning down buildings, and they're throwing bricks through windows, and they're behaving like animals, and we'll never give them what they want, right? It's so much easier to do that if you believe that they're all accurate.
No, it's not.
Yeah,
if you give them the opportunity to make you look like the villain, they're gonna do it, right? No matter which way you point it.
Yeah.
So
So that's rough, and that's what a lot of Trump's tweets and public statements have been about, is the rioters, right?
Yeah.
So it's very clear that's what he sees this as. He's like, these people, there's this one cop, and there's this one guy that died, and they're burning down entire cities, and I'm going to sick the military on him, and I'm going to tear gas him, and we're going to stop this,
Right.
Because that's his perspective, and it sucks. It's too complicated for him, I think, is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, sure.
I don't know. How smart is Trump? That's the hard question. I don't know. It's easy to say he's a complete moron, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know. There's parts of him that have some level of intelligence.
Well, according to him, he's a genius. So.
Yeah, he's not there. Like, I don't know how smart he is. He's not a genius.
This just in. News at 9. Water is wet.
Yeah. Blah. So I don't know. So as far as I've been affected by this whole thing, is my local Walmart closes at 5 o'clock now instead of 8 o'clock for the COVID hours it was on.
Did you get your drill?
Yeah, I did. So that's a funny story. I already told Omicron this, but I ordered a drill just for drilling stuff around the house, power drill, and ordered it for pickup from Walmart because it's super easy. You just go into the entrance. You don't have to go too far in. There's a big old automated tower that grabs your thing and drops it down to you. It's kind of neat, actually. Do they have those where you are? Have you seen these before?
What?
Yeah.
I tuned out.
Yeah, no, you're fine because you thought I was telling you a story that you've already heard. Yeah.
Yes, and so I was taking an opportunity to read Trump's tweets because I normally don't see them.
Why would you do that? All right.
Because you were talking about them.
It's true. It's fine. So yeah, it's they're pickup towers. They installed fairly recently at my local Walmart. Anyway, here I'll send you a video.
Okay.
So basically, they send you an email or they push notify you to the Walmart app that your pickup thing is ready. You go up to it, you scan a barcode, and then it apparently all the pickup stuff is in the top of this tower, and it grabs the thing that you want, drops it down to you, and then you walk out.
Huh.
So it's pretty neat. So I set it up for pickup, and they said it'd be ready the next day, and I said, that's fine. I'm not in a super hurry for this thing. And then about 2 hours later, they sent me an email saying it's ready for pickup. This was at 5:10 p.m., and I was like, cool. I know they close at 8. I can go there fast and get it and come home and be ready to go. So I show up to Walmart at 5:15 or 5:20, and the front doors are shut. There's a line of shopping carts in front of the entrance side, and there's Walmart employees all over the other side for exit, just making sure that people are leaving and not going in.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm walking up, and they're like, "Yeah, we closed at 5." And I was like, "What? What are you talking about?" And yeah, apparently it's a result of some of the protests going on in Salt Lake City. And so I don't know. It's all rumor, man. It's all rumor and conjecture. So what I heard was that no, we're not officially under the curfew set by the mayor of Salt Lake City. We're not we're not inside that zone, because we're so far west from Salt Lake. I mean, there's nothing out here, but anyway. But apparently there had been some specific threats against Walmart in general from like some of these groups. So Walmart's like, all right, we're just gonna take the easy route, shut it down, send everybody home at 5 o'clock.
Fair enough.
Which, I mean, that's another complicated thing, because for some people, that's their income. And they just, lost anywhere from 3 hours to maybe more hours of pay per day that Walmart's not compensating them for, because it's Walmart.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's like, did we want people working at Walmart with the COVID stuff happening anyway? Maybe we're just putting them in the line of fire, and maybe being less time in a Walmart is better for them. It's all a mess.
It's a mess. Yep.
It's a mess. So, yeah, that's the only thing that's affected me as far as these protests are concerned. And I expect it to all calm down in a couple of weeks. The COVID stuff's probably going to go on forever and ever. Amen. Probably work from home for the rest of my life. The schools won't reopen. Who knows? Who knows what's going to happen with that? But I anticipate it'll be a while. I did hear from my boss today, actually, that as far as he knows, there are no plans to go back into the office for us. Like, none. They haven't even really been talking about it. So, working from home for some time.
Sometime. Okay.
For some time. So, speaking of politics and upcoming elections.
Yeah.
I was watching more Narcos Mexico. I think I'm almost done with it. I think I have one more episode to go. We'll be done. So I don't know how historically accurate this show is. I feel like they've tried pretty hard to do it with obviously some license for making it more exciting for the viewing audience. Just creative liberties that way. But they claim there was an election in Mexico back in the 80s where they took advantage of the fact that early public returns for presidential elections can swing the later returns. If it looks like your candidate is losing in the first few hours of the voting, right, which is being live tallied, then you're less likely to go to the polls later to vote for him because he's a loser, and what's the point, right?
Right.
Not everyone feels that way, but a lot of people do, and it does seem to affect elections. So this really corrupt political party in Mexico, who's been in power for decades, just never given it up, right? There's actually a groundswell movement against them, partially because there was a giant earthquake in Mexico City in the 80s that killed like 20 million people, and the government didn't really do much about it to help.
Okay.
So people were pissed. So there's this groundswell of this new party coming up who's fighting against the corruption, and the polls all say they're going to kick this, old-time party in the butt. Just knock them out.
Right.
So what they do is they set it up to where they make it look like the early returns in the presidential election on the day of the election are really favoring the old guard. And in that way, they actually do swing the votes for the rest of the people who vote throughout the day to win the election. But the early returns were all totally fake. But they took advantage of the fact that they could fake them just for the first 3 or 4 hours and swing it the other way, because they were losing. They were losing like 70 to 30% in those first couple hours, but they hid it from the people and faked it and said they were winning by 60 to 40. Anyway, so that's the thing they did. And so I was just thinking that's how we do things now, right? At least in the U.S., our presidential election, the entire day, every news channel, all they're talking about are the returns from Iowa and the returns from Florida and the returns from New York City. And it just moves across from east to west as the day goes on. And then the final tallies are coming in California, Washington, and Oregon. And I do feel like there are people who, were ready to vote for their candidate, But then the returns from New York and Ohio and Pennsylvania came in, and it was looking bad, and they just said, screw it, I'm not going to the polls today. It's going to be a madhouse. I'll have to wait in line. I'd rather just stay home, and we'll get him next time, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Blah. So that's something I was thinking about, and especially with the upcoming election in November, which is going to be incredibly contentious, and people are going to be really, really mad at each other here, because Trump supporters are dug in, man. Like, to this day, I am pretty sure there's nobody who was supporting Trump at the start of 2020 and is now not supporting Trump because every story against him is just part of the conspiracy to get him out of office because they don't like that he's as successful and brilliant as he is, blah, 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 you know?
Yeah. I feel like what you guys need is a preferential voting system, right?
Yeah.
Just
like ranked voting?
Yeah.
Yep.
Just to slow down the count, right? Because it's like we need to go through and count all of them to see who gets knocked out, who gets the least, and then tally their second preferences. That way, people on the West Coast, doesn't matter what people on the East Coast voted 6 hours ago, because even if your guy comes in last, you still get your second preference. You can still affect the voting outcome despite whatever the polls say at the moment.
Yep.
Like,
and I think that'd be awesome.
I feel like that's all you need to do.
But, like, the problem, though, yeah, that's part of it. But I think part of it, too, is let's see, for one party to be motivated to introduce ranked choice at the federal level, it would have to benefit them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it benefits them, the other party's going to say, screw you, we're not introducing ranked choice right now because it would help you, you jerks.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the situation we're in. Is anybody who wants to do it and has the power to do it is going to be fought tooth and nail by the other party to make it not happen. And then maybe in 10 years, it's a switch situation. And maybe the party that wasn't going to be helped by it now will be really helped by it. And now the other party is not going to be helped by it. And unless we find a situation where somehow both parties see the light and can benefit from ranked choice at one specific lucky point in time and both support it and both push it through, I don't see it happening.
That entirely summarizes all political conversation you can have in America, which is if you can't get your two leading parties to agree on something that would definitely be beneficial to everyone in the goddamn fucking country.
Yes.
Like, just on the way you elect people, you're never going to get them to agree on other issues.
Nope.
At all, right?
Correct.
You don't need one person to introduce it because it'll be beneficial for them. We know it'll be beneficial for everybody. We know this. There is no reason both parties wouldn't support it other than the fact it might get them out of office next election.
Yeah, they're just interested in hanging on to their own power, and that's all that matters. It's a mess.
Which is why riots happen, because the voting system doesn't work.
Yeah. Yep. That's it's a sad note there, but yes.
Yep. Ooh. Cheery podcast today.
I know, but I mean that's where we are. It's the state of the world is not cheery.
It's true fact.
Truth. So I mean, I don't know. 2020 is going to go down as one heck of a year. It will be remembered. I can tell you that much.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely something.
It is something. So I don't know. It's just so frustrating because it feels like the COVID thing was kind of getting back to normal, kind of opening up the state. But then there's always the concern of a second wave coming in the fall because stuff's opening up. And then there's the concern of what's all this protesting going to do to the COVID situation. Mm-hmm. Because we went from everyone stay at home, stay quarantined, don't leave your house unless you have to 10,000 people mashed up against each other in the city square, you know, jostling and exchanging everything.
Mm-hmm. I mean, yeah.
But you can't be like, don't do this for public safety because it's an important thing that they need to bring attention to. It's just, it sucks.
Arguably, they were doing it for public safety, just not
different angle on public safety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is one video that I've seen on Reddit that makes me smile, which is a guy who is a creepy as fuck streamer, right? Like, he waits for other people to go live in, like, his area. Normally he's in, like, New York or something, and then he goes and finds them, right? Yeah,
What?
it's super freaking creepy. And all of his channels have, like, all their stuff moved now. So, but basically, it was him.
He like goes and knocks on their doors?
No. He waits for people who are, like, streaming on the street, who are, like, walking around New York or whatever, and being like, hey, this is New York City, my first time here, let's go check out Times Square. And then he goes and finds them on the street.
Good heavens.
Yeah. It's weird.
Yeah,
but basically,
okay.
he like, this clip is him walking down with one of the protests and just turns and points to, like, a truck and being like, hey, can you guys flip that? And then the entire march stops and, like, two people start, like, calling him out and him just bolting.
He just runs.
Yeah.
See, that's the kind of stuff that's going on, man. There are people who are just like, violence is cool. Let's incite some violence here. We have a bunch of people here with raging emotions.
Yeah.
It's a good place to do it.
Yep.
Blech.
Blah.
So a message board I'm on, someone's like, all right, post your prediction for 2020's next catastrophe. What are we going to do?
I'm hoping aliens.
Aliens would be... I would put 2020 on the map for sure, if it wasn't already.
Mm-hmm.
But people are like, well, hurricane season could be horrible. Like, wipe out major cities on the eastern seaboard. That's something that could happen. An earthquake would probably do it. Like an 8 or 9 earthquake in California would be a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
But then there's always the Yellowstone caldera blowing, which I think we've talked about on the pod, but...
Probably.
Yeah. Effectively, it's just a huge, massive time bomb that could go off at any time and nobody really knows when.
I think the technical term is super volcano, which I love.
Super volcano.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if that happened, that would kill a whole lot of people and send a giant cloud of ash over most of North America and then kill more people.
Probably.
Yeah. So that would be a thing. I don't know. It's just I'm normally kind of an optimist when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I really, and this is part of it's been my experience, is that I've seen things go bad and then things just go back to normal. Like, we had a recession in 2008. Things went back to normal pretty quickly after that. We've had protests about police violence before. Everything went back to normal after that. So, I don't know. It just feels like everything's going to go back to normal. But if this keeps pushing, like, stuff just keeps happening like this, then I don't know. My normal optimism seems like it might be struggling a bit with all the things that are going down.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I don't know. I mean, with all the things that are happening, I'm doing fine. I'm sure Samacron, as far as I know, is doing fine. We both have our jobs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're not losing our livelihood that way.
Sure.
We're personally affected by the COVID, as far as I know.
Yeah. Should be good.
Yeah. Oh, I had my final visit for the chikungunya.
Oh, how'd that go?
Man, it's been years. It was great. So I called and I was like, are we doing this with the COVID? And like, yeah, just come in, put on a mask. It's going to be fast. I was like, all right, cool. So yeah, so I did. Went in and they were like, so you haven't been here for 6 months. I was like, that is true, because this is a weird study. It takes forever to get follow-ups. But they're like, yeah, they redid all the paperwork in like October. And then they did it again in March. And they want you to sign both of them. And I was like, are you kidding me? Why can't I just sign the most recent one? It's like 5 pages of like initial here, sign here, date this.
Here's a pen we haven't sterilized.
Yeah. Well, and what's funny is they could have just told me it's all the same paperwork and I would have been fine. Because I wasn't looking through the whole thing. I wouldn't have noticed that it was repeating stuff. But they were straight up about it, so that was cool.
Okay. Well.
Yeah.
Do you get told any of the results of this test?
No.
Yeah.
Nope.
Wholly unsatisfying.
Kinda, yeah. I mean, once the results are complete and they're published, then sure,
Mhm.
you can go look them up. But they're not gonna like email me what happened.
It's unfortunate.
I don't think they were gonna tell me if I had a placebo or not, because that's part of it, right?
Yeah, but I mean, you definitely developed a cough, right? Like a recurring cough that refused to leave for like the last year, right?
I mean, I think I had that before.
I don't know.
I have to do an analysis of all the podcasts and see how frequently Falcon coughs into the microphone.
Well, here's the problem. I probably cut them from the podcast.
Oh, right. Good point. Or I muted myself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same thing with the streams or the casts.
Yeah. There's no
Yeah.
science.
There's no science to be done here. Well, I suppose if you muted yourself on the cast, we would know it, because there would be a mute patch.
True. No background
So-
noise at all.
Everyone just go and watch his cast and listen for the sound of silence.
Yeah, if you need something to do, then go listen to all the podcasts. Listen to when there's just complete silence on my end,
Mm-hmm.
and then we'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Sounds scientific.
Because, I mean, I don't know. I never even told them about the, like, infrequent kind of consistent cough that I have.
What,
All
like,
they
did
ever
they
asked
ask
was,
you
like,
to say?
have you been hospitalized, right? Have you
Ah.
received medication for any illnesses? And it's like, no. Like, none of that applies to this at all. Have you had a fever? No. Like, there's no other symptoms other than a
Cough.
somewhat persistent irritation in the back of my throat that doesn't entirely go away.
Yeah, but to be fair, like, that could be numerous other things. Like, you
Yeah.
do like 7 hours of YouTube casts a week, right? Just talking that much will wear someone's throat out.
Truth.
Yeah.
I don't do much talking during the day when I'm working anyway.
Mm.
Especially now, where it's like all of my conversation with my coworkers is chatted into text.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that probably actually makes it worse then, because you're only using your vocal cords for like a short but very intense period of time.
Oh, I'm not warming them up.
Yeah.
I should talk to Cinnamon more.
Indeed. Yep.
Yep, that's it.
We got our stray cat that was living in our backyard to spend the full night indoors last night.
Whoa, didn't freak out on you, huh?
No. Stayed in like on the couch all night.
Cool.
We had to leave the back door open, so there was like a cold breeze blowing in the entire time. But it was still warmer for her, I imagine.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Well, good. I think that's it. Anything else we need to cover this week?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, good stuff. Thanks for hanging out with us today. Hope you're all staying safe and healthy wherever you are. And please make decisions to keep yourself that way. Please feel free to check out the merch store if you need to get some stuff during this time of quarantine, or the Patreon page for the podcast. And until next time, as always, thank you so much for spending your time with us, especially now. And you take care of yourself.